Michael stepped onto the train with a tired smile, holding his small travel bag close to his chest. The platform noise faded behind him, and he moved toward the entrance, thinking about the quiet trip ahead. But then the conductor, a woman with sharp eyes, leaned toward him suddenly. "Sir, pretend you're feeling sick and get off this train right now," she whispered urgently. Michael blinked, half smiling because he thought she was joking. But she grabbed his arm with trembling fingers. "Please, trust me. I'm begging you." Her voice carried fear he could not ignore. Hours earlier, Michael had walked through the doorway of his own kitchen, carrying a salad bowl for dinner. The moment he stepped in, Lily and Tom froze like children caught doing something wrong. Their whispering stopped instantly, and they both wore guilty expressions that changed too quickly into fake smiles. "Dinner's ready," Michael said softly, placing the bowl on the table. Lily forced a bright smile. "Thanks, Dad. Smells great." The three of them sat down, but the air felt wrong, heavy, tense, like a storm waiting to break. For several minutes, they ate in silence. The only sounds were forks scraping plates and the old clock ticking from the hallway. Michael watched Tom pour himself one glass of wine, then another, and then a third. Tom leaned back with a strange confidence, swirling the drink. "Well, soon there will be changes around here," he said, loosening his shoulders. "We'll finally live like real people, not like—" "Tom," Lily cut him quickly, her voice sharp. "Dad doesn't want to hear about your boring job talk." Michael set down his fork carefully. "What changes are you talking about?" he asked. Tom's face went blank, and he took another long sip of wine. "Nothing. Just possibilities," he muttered. Lily reached across the table and placed her cold hand on Michael's. "Dad, don't overthink things. We're just excited about our upcoming trip." Tom finally looked up, eyes avoiding Michael's. "Just money stress. Nothing for you to worry about." But after 30 years of teaching history, Michael knew when someone was hiding a story. This one had gaps everywhere. That night, he retreated into his study, claiming he needed rest, but sleep refused to come. Before dawn, he slipped downstairs, the house quiet and still. Halfway through the hallway, he froze when he heard Lily's voice drifting from the study. The door was slightly open, golden light spilling across the floor. "Just 2 more days," Lily whispered. "Then everything changes forever." Michael's heart pounded. Another pause. No, he suspects nothing. It'll look completely natural. At that moment, he knew something in his home had shifted into danger. Michael stood in the hallway, his coffee trembling in his hand. Lily stepped out of the study and almost collided with him. Her eyes widened for a split second before she forced a smile. "Dad, you're up early," she said, tucking her phone into her pocket. "Couldn't sleep," Michael replied calmly, though his heart raced. "Everything all right?" Lily hesitated, then spoke quickly. "Just talking to Rebecca about a surprise for our trip. Nothing big." She brushed past him toward the kitchen, leaving him frozen in the quiet hall, filled with questions he couldn't ignore. Over the next 2 days, Michael watched them carefully, quietly, like a man studying clues in a history book. Lily and Tom whispered in corners, shut laptops fast, and covered papers whenever he walked in. One afternoon, he entered the living room with a book in hand. Tom slammed his laptop shut so fast it echoed. "Just checking train schedules," Tom said too quickly. Michael raised an eyebrow. "We already have tickets, don't we?" Tom forced a smile. "Just confirming times." But Michael saw the panic behind his eyes. The next morning, he found Lily and Tom bent over papers spread across the kitchen counter. When he stepped in, Lily swept everything into a folder. "Just boring financial stuff," she said, almost too fast to hear. "Anything I should know?" Michael asked calmly. Tom shook his head without meeting his gaze. "Just trip planning," but their body language betrayed them. Too close, too tense, too secretive. Screens locked instantly whenever he approached. Papers vanished like smoke. He felt like a stranger in his own home. That night, Michael sat alone in his study with the 3 train tickets he had bought, a Celia Express to Washington, departing 10:47 a.m. A birthday gift for Lily, planned months earlier. He turned them over slowly, feeling the weight of suspicion heavy on his chest. "Maybe I'm imagining things," he whispered to himself. But another part of him, the part trained to analyze lies and motives, was wide awake. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Still, Running wouldn't give him answers. He needed to go on this trip and see the truth for himself. The next morning, he packed his bag carefully, folding each shirt like a man preparing for battle. He walked downstairs, set the bag by the front door, and listened to the silence of the house. From upstairs came muffled voices, Lily and Tom speaking urgently behind their closed door. He couldn't hear the words, only the tone, tense, planning, waiting. He stood at the foot of the stairs for a long moment, watching the shadows. Whatever tomorrow held, he would face it. But he had no idea how dark the truth would become. Morning light filled the grand hall of the train station as Michael followed Lily and Tom through the busy crowd. They walked ahead with an urgency that didn't feel like excitement. Lily kept checking her phone every few seconds. Tom kept glancing over his shoulder at Michael as if timing something. "We have plenty of time," Michael said softly, but Lily forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Just want to get good seats," she said. Her voice trembled ever so slightly. Something was tightening around them, unseen but real. They boarded the train, found their seats, and settled in like travelers who had rehearsed every step. Michael stood just outside the door, preparing to enter, when the conductor approached him. She stepped too close, eyes intense. "Sir, please pretend you're sick and walk away," she whispered. Michael frowned, confused. "I think you have the wrong person." But she shook her head hard. "I heard them talking upstairs. They mentioned an accident, inheritance, you." Michael's throat went dry. Everything suddenly connected like pieces snapping into place. He clutched his chest and stumbled backward, acting out the sickness she asked him to fake. "Help! Medical assistance!" she shouted convincingly. People around them rushed forward. Michael waved weakly at Lily through the window. "Go on," he said, forcing a shaky voice. "I'll take the next train." Lily rushed to the door, panic in her eyes, but Tom grabbed her arm tightly. The doors closed. Michael stood rooted in place as the train pulled away, watching his daughter's face disappear behind the glass. A cold certainty settled in his stomach. They had meant for him to die. The conductor, her badge read Lillian, helped him sit on a bench. The station noise sounded far away. "Are you sure?" Michael whispered. "Positive," she said. They described exactly how the accident should look. A fall. A slip. Something quick. Michael swallowed hard as the train vanished into the tunnel. His hands were steady now, strangely steady. "Thank you," he said, voice low. "You might have saved my life." Lillian nodded gently. "Be careful. People planning these things don't stop after the first attempt." Michael returned home alone, the quiet of the house pressing around him like a heavy blanket. His phone buzzed non-stop, Lily calling, texting, pretending to worry. He ignored it. Instead, he walked into his study, locked the door, and pulled out a notebook. Years of teaching had trained him to examine evidence, trace motives, and see hidden patterns. He wrote everything down: the whispers, the papers they hid, the phone call, the conductor's warning, the strange behavior. The story had a shape now, and it was unmistakably dark. He opened his file cabinet, remembering a set of routine documents Tom had convinced him to sign weeks earlier. Inside he found them: bank updates, insurance forms, account changes. One envelope made his blood freeze. A life insurance policy, signed by him, listing Lily and Tom as beneficiaries. Coverage, $500,000. Premium, paid from his account without his knowledge. Michael stared at the paper for a long moment. "So that's the motive," he whispered. "Not grief. Not love. Money." His phone buzzed again. Another message from Lily: "Dad, please call. We're scared." "Are you okay?" Michael exhaled slowly. Their acting was impressive, but the evidence in his hands told the truth. He needed more proof, solid, undeniable, something no one could twist. He placed a small recorder on his desk, tested the audio, and slipped it behind a row of books in the living room where they usually sat. Tonight, he would go to bed early, pretend to sleep, and let the recorder capture whatever they whispered in the dark. That night, he lay in bed with his eyes open, listening for their voices. Downstairs, he heard chairs move, glasses clink, hushed conversation. In the morning, when they believed he was still sleeping, he retrieved the recorder and took it into his study. His fingers trembled slightly as he pressed play. Hours of silence. Then Tom's voice broke through, low but sharp. Plan failed. We need a new one, Lily responded, her voice shaking. Maybe something at home, the stairs, something normal. Michael froze. There it was, their own voices plotting his death. As the recording ended, Michael felt a strange calm wash over him. Fear drained away, replaced by a cold clarity. They wanted him dead. They planned it together. They believed they would succeed. He gathered the papers, the audio recorder, and the insurance policy, placing them neatly on his desk like pieces in a case file. I can't go to the police yet, he murmured. Not without more. He knew exactly what he had to do now. Stay quiet, stay patient, and collect every piece of truth until the entire scheme collapsed on them. By evening, he heard their car outside. Keys rattled. Whispering voices entered the hallway. Michael stepped out of his study with a calm smile. You're back early, he said. Lily rushed to him, eyes wide with fake concern. Dad, we were worried. Are you feeling better? Much better, he lied. Her smile flickered. Tom studied him silently, something calculating in his gaze. Michael felt no fear now, only purpose. They believed he was still blind. But he would use their confidence against them. The hunter had just awakened. Over the next 2 days, Michael played the role of a gentle old man, quiet, harmless, unaware. He cooked meals, asked Lily about work, nodded politely when Tom spoke about future plans. But inside, he analyzed their every move. Lily watched him too closely, always studying his reactions. Tom seemed restless, pacing the house, checking the stairs more than once. Michael could see the pressure building in their eyes. They expected him to be weak, confused, predictable. But he was none of those things. Not anymore. One morning, he walked down the main staircase and stopped. The steps were wet, shining with a thin layer of water. No mop. No bucket. Just a trap waiting for him. Tom stepped out of the kitchen, saw him looking, and froze. Oh, Tom said too casually, must have spilled something. Michael slowly nodded. Careful, he said softly. A fall at my age could be dangerous. Their eyes met, and for the first time, Tom looked away. That was all the confirmation Michael needed. They were desperate now. That afternoon, Lily placed a small container beside his breakfast. Dad, take these, she said gently. They'll help you relax. You've been so stressed. Michael smiled warmly. Thank you, dear. She watched carefully as he lifted the pills to his mouth. He pretended to swallow, then covered his lips with his napkin. When she turned away, he slipped the pills into his pocket. Later, he drove to a private lab across town. Can you test these? He asked. The technician nodded. Results would come in 3 days. Michael prayed he was wrong, but his instincts told him he wasn't. 3 days later, the results arrived. Michael unfolded the paper slowly, reading every line with growing disbelief. The pills contained heavy sleep medication, dangerously strong, enough to cause confusion, blackout, or a fatal fall. He sat down heavily in his chair. His own daughter had placed poison at his breakfast table. He closed his eyes for a long moment. So this is who you've become, Lily, he whispered. But there was no time for grief. There was only time for strategy. He gathered the lab report and added it to his growing evidence pile. That evening, he sat across from Lily and Tom at dinner. The clinking of forks sounded too loud in the quiet room. You two have been stressed lately, Michael said calmly. Anything you want to tell me? Tom stiffened. Lily swallowed hard. Just money problems, she said softly. Nothing important. Michael nodded slowly. Money can make people do dangerous things. Tom's fork paused mid-air. Lily's eyes darted toward him. The air tightened instantly. They felt the shift, but they didn't know its direction. That ignorance was Michael's advantage. After dinner, Michael claimed he was tired and went upstairs early. He listened from the hallway as Lily and Tom whispered fiercely in the living room. We have to try again, Tom hissed. We can't wait any longer. Lily sounded shaken. But he's watching us. Then we do it tonight, Tom whispered. Michael's heart thudded in his chest, but his mind stayed cold and clear. They were moving fast now, too fast. Desperation was pushing them toward mistakes. He slipped back into his bedroom, locked the door quietly, and prepared for what was coming. That night, Footsteps crept up the hallway. Soft. Slow. Careful. Michael sat in a chair beside his bed, fully awake, holding his phone with his thumb over the emergency call button. The doorknob moved. Then a whisper, Tom's voice. "He's asleep. Just push the door." Michael rose silently and flicked on the light. "Good evening," he said calmly. Lily and Tom froze in the doorway, eyes wide, caught like thieves in a spotlight. No one spoke for several seconds. Tom stuttered, We heard a noise." "You certainly did," Michael replied, his voice steady as stone. The next morning, Michael drove to a law office downtown to meet a quiet, experienced attorney named Mr. Carter. He laid every piece of evidence on the table: the recorded conversation, the wet stares, the poison pills, the insurance form, the conductor's warning. Mr. Carter studied everything carefully, his face growing darker as he read. "This is attempted murder," he said firmly. "But police will want airtight proof." Michael nodded. "I'm not pressing charges yet. First, I want them out of my house. And I want them to lose everything they tried to steal." Mr. Carter drafted a 30-day notice to leave the property, clean and legal, requiring no explanation under the tenancy laws. "Give this to them today," he said. "They'll panic. They'll make mistakes. Document everything." Michael returned home, heart steady. Lily and Tom sat in the living room, whispering over their laptop. He handed each of them an envelope. Lily opened hers first. "Dad, what is this?" 30 days, he said simply. "You need to find another place to live." Lily's face crumbled. Tom's face twisted with rage. "You can't do this," Tom snapped. Michael looked at him sharply. "Watch me." Lily burst into tears. "Dad, we're your family," she cried. "Where will we go?" Michael placed the lab report on the table between them. "Family doesn't poison family," he said quietly. Tom grabbed the paper, scanned it, and went pale. Michael added the insurance form. Then the recorder. Then the typed conversation timeline. "I know everything," he said. "Every whisper. Every lie." The room fell silent, heavy, choking silence. Lily covered her face with trembling hands. Tom looked like a cornered animal. Michael stepped back firmly. 30 days, he repeated. "And use them wisely." The days that followed felt like living in a storm that refused to break. Lily and Tom moved through the house like ghosts, silent, tense, watching Michael from the corners of their eyes. Their whispers grew sharper, arguments louder, blame passing between them like fire. Michael kept his study door locked, sleeping lightly, listening for footsteps. Every night, he heard them pacing, panicking, planning. But the fear no longer belonged to him. He had taken back control. Each morning, he marked the calendar, counting down their final days. On the 12th day, a thick envelope arrived for Michael. Inside was the official lab report, notarized and stamped. He placed it neatly beside the insurance papers and the recording transcript. Together, they looked like puzzle pieces forming one terrifying truth. That evening, Lily stood in the doorway with red eyes. "Dad, can we talk?" she whispered. Michael nodded slowly. She stepped inside. "We never meant to hurt you," she said, but her voice cracked. "We were desperate." Michael's face softened for only a second. "Desperation doesn't excuse murder," he replied quietly. Tom avoided him entirely now, moving around the house with clenched teeth and furious eyes. One night, Michael caught him standing at the bottom of the staircase, staring up with an expression that chilled his blood. Tom whispered to himself, pacing back and forth. When he noticed Michael watching, he forced a crooked smile. "Just thinking," he muttered. Michael didn't respond. He simply stepped aside. He knew a cornered man was dangerous, but he also knew Tom had run out of moves. With every passing day, their world was collapsing faster. A week later, Tom finally snapped. Michael heard a loud crash downstairs and rushed in to find Tom slamming cabinet doors, shouting into his phone. "We have 30 days. 30, Tom yelled. "He's ruining everything." He kicked a chair hard enough to knock it over. Lily grabbed his arm. "Stop, Tom. You're scaring me." But Tom shook her off. "It was supposed to be easy," he shouted. Michael stood silently in the doorway, watching the meltdown with a calm heart. Their true nature was spilling into the open, and there was no reversing it. The very next morning, Tom stormed into the living room. "Fine," he barked. "If you want us gone, we'll go. But you're going to regret this." Michael didn't flinch. "The only thing I regret," he said steadily, "is ever trusting you." Tom scoffed and slammed the door behind him. Lily stayed behind, trembling. "Dad. I don't know what happened to us," she whispered. "We weren't always like this." Michael looked at her with tired eyes. "Greed changes people, Lily. Sometimes forever." She lowered her head, unable to argue. On the final week, Michael decided to take the last step. He met with Mr. Carter again and placed all his documents on the lawyer's desk. "I want everything transferred," he said firmly. "The house, the savings, my investments. All of it." Carter nodded, understanding immediately. "You're sure?" "I'm sure," Michael said. "They will inherit nothing. I want it secured, away from them." Together they created a trust, naming a scholarship program for underprivileged history students as the sole beneficiary. A legacy built not from fear, but from purpose. The day before Lily and Tom had to leave, Michael returned home feeling strangely peaceful. The house was quiet, the sunlight warm across the wooden floors. Lily stood in the living room with her suitcase packed. Her eyes were swollen from crying. "Dad," she whispered, "please, say something before we go." Michael stepped closer, studying the daughter he once held as a baby, now a stranger shaped by desperation. "I hope you find yourselves again," he said softly. "But you won't find it here." Her lips trembled, but she nodded and walked away. Tom waited outside by the car, jaw tight, refusing to look at Michael. When Lily climbed in, he muttered under his breath, "This isn't over." Michael stepped forward, voice calm and steady. "It is over," he said. "And if you ever come back here with threats, the police will finish what I didn't." Tom's eyes flickered with anger, but he turned away. The engine started. The car pulled from the driveway. Michael watched until the taillights vanished around the corner. The house fell silent, a silence not of fear, but relief. Later that evening, Michael sat on his porch, listening to the soft sounds of the neighborhood, children playing down the street, dogs barking faintly, a breeze moving gently through the trees. For the first time in months, he felt safe. He felt human again. He knew the story could have ended on that train, quietly, tragically. But life had given him a warning, and he had listened. Now the threat was gone. The house felt like his again. His sanctuary. His peace. The danger had passed, and the rebuilding could begin. As the sun set behind the rooftops, Michael reflected on everything he had survived: the lies, the fear, the betrayal from those he loved most. But he also thought about what he had built in the ashes: a scholarship fund that would help young minds, a legacy rooted in hope instead of greed. He breathed in the cool evening air and allowed a small tired smile to form. "Justice," he whispered, "sometimes you build it yourself." Inside, the lights glowed warm and steady. The story that almost ended him had finally ended. And his life, quiet, safe, and honest, was beginning again.